folks, welcome to the Cutler Corner. I'm State Representative Josh Cutler, proud to represent the 6th Plymouth District, towns of Pembroke, Duxbury, and Hanson. And this is my second show, and I have a great guest and a predecessor of mine who I'm honored to have with me, Plymouth County Treasurer Tom O'Brien. Tom was the former state representative for Duxbury and Kingston area and is now serving as the Plymouth County Treasurer, and is a good personal friend and a work colleague, and I'm very honored to have you here, and thanks for your time, Tom.
Well, I'm excited to be here, Josh. I'm looking forward to my appearance on your show. I'm a little disappointed to learn this is the second show, but that's okay. We'll do what we can.
You're a busy man, and so we have to make do.
We had to schedule somebody else in between.
That's right.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. And Josh, let me just say I'm very proud of you and very happy about your election. So congratulations on being the state representative. I know that you'll serve that district extremely well.
Thank you. I very much enjoyed my first time on the job, so thank you.
You're welcome.
And we had, last month we had a good meeting with the Plymouth County delegation. I thought that'd be a good way to kick off our conversation. Had a meeting up at the State House with just about all the Plymouth County legislators and our new county commissioners, and as yourself as well, talking about some of the legislation that the county is looking to do. We have a great bipartisan delegation here in Plymouth County, and contrary to what folks sometimes see in Washington, D.C., Democrats and Republicans, we work together here, at least in Plymouth County, and so that was good. But maybe you could kind of walk us through some of the legislation that the county's looking to do.
Sure, and I'm glad you talk about the bipartisanship, Josh. I think it's important because people see what's happening in Washington, D.C. They're tired of the gridlock. They really want people to work together. And I'm excited about our new group of commissioners. We just elected Greg Hanley as a commissioner, Dan Pallotta as a commissioner, one Democrat, one Republican. We already have a Republican on the board. And yet we're all working together and really trying to make sure that the county moves forward and is in a position to help our cities and towns. A lot of people don't know much about Plymouth County, and we're doing our best to get out there and advocate for the county. I'd like to talk about that at some point in time as well. But one of the things we realize is that if you travel around the United States, county government is very effective. And it's effective because it regionalizes services. It harnesses the benefit of bringing groups together and providing services over a broad-based area. So if you've traveled to Pennsylvania or Maryland or Florida, you know that county government is huge.
People identify themselves by what county they live in other parts of the state.
They do. They do in other parts of the country. But here, we tend to be a little more parochial in nature. And what we've realized at the Plymouth County government level is that our communities now more than ever really need help. So we want to be in a position to help them when they need it. So if they're asking for a particular service, we want to be able to help them. However, given some of our challenges, we're not able to do that. So we asked the legislative delegation to get together. We really appreciate you coming. We were pleased with the number of representatives and senators that took time out of their schedule to meet with us, because it's a crazy time for you folks. A lot on your plates, a lot of meetings, a lot of things to attend to. I know your schedule is jam-packed. And so to take some time to talk about this was important. And what we were able to talk about was the fact that the paradigm has really shifted over the years. The paradigm where county government was receiving monies from the Registry of Deeds collected from the inhabitants of Plymouth County, and we were able to use that for regional services. And then, as we talked about at that meeting, every dollar we spend in regional government at the Plymouth County level saves our communities $4 to $5 in cost of their own services. Mm-hmm. So as we see the fiscal challenges our communities face, and you know this better than anybody, they need help, and in order to provide those services, they're going to need some assistance, and we believe we're perfectly positioned to do that.
You threw out a number that I thought was quite astonishing, that the average taxpayer pays only $2.73
per person per year. So one of the things we talked about at that meeting, and I'm glad you brought it up, I was going to try and segue into it, everybody knows what they pay in federal taxes, right? They know that they have to pay by April 15th. They're somewhere between 10 and 35% bracket, but they know what they pay. They know what percentage of their income goes to federal services. Everyone knows what they pay in state taxes. 5.3%. Everybody knows that number. Everybody's familiar with that number, and they know they have to pay that by April 15th. Everybody knows what they pay in the community. They know what they pay for real estate taxes. They know what they pay for excise tax. But nobody knows what they pay in direct cost for the operation of county government. And so as we're going out and talking to people and saying, And I always say, okay, well, think about what you pay for federal taxes, think about what you pay in state, think about what you pay locally. How much do you think you pay per year? And people will often guess, in the high hundreds, maybe even $1,000. And they're shocked to learn that it's $2.73 per resident. So
per year.
Per year.
Not per month.
Not per month. Per year. Per year. Less than a gallon of 1% milk for the whole year.
It's my coffee money every day.
It's your coffee money every day.
Actually, for me, that wouldn't even...
that wouldn't even cover the day?
No.
And then we say, okay, well, what do they get for that $2.73? And we're very proud of our registry of deeds. We think we have the best registry of deeds in the country. And as a result of good management and the efficacy of services, we have 2 satellite offices. We have a satellite office in Rockland, satellite office in Brockton. That's a pretty good service area to help the communities of Plymouth County. So people say, well, I get that for $2.73? That's pretty good. But it reminds me of some of those old commercials. But wait, there's more. But wait, there's more. And so people need to understand that we also own, operate, and maintain 3 courthouses throughout Plymouth County. So the District Court in Hingham, the District Court in Wareham, and Superior Court in Brockton are owned and maintained by Plymouth County. So we do that. All for that same $2.73.
But wait, there's more.
But wait.
I'm catching on.
You are excellent at this. There is. So we have a fire control airplane. So a lot of people don't know that, but it's a vintage plane. And what we're fortunate enough to have are retired fire chiefs and firefighters that volunteer their time to help man the plane. So on high danger days, I guess red days, the plane goes up and it flies over Plymouth County and helps spot fires. And we've been told by our firefighters, by our fire chiefs, by our Fire Chiefs Association, that this has saved hundreds of millions of dollars over the last 10, 15 years in being able to allocate their resources from the air.
So this plane is going up on days that are designated?
Yes, yes.
I didn't know that.
Most people don't. But wait. There's more. So we also have a parking ticket program. We process parking tickets. Duxbury just actually joined the Plymouth County parking program. I know they're excited about it because it takes that...
Well, no one's excited about parking tickets.
What they're excited about is it takes the responsibility of processing, gives it to us, we process it, and we cut a check every month to the town of Duxbury. So it's a pretty good arrangement for them. We do it cheaper because we're a fellow level of government, and we provide that service. But wait, there's still more. We do bulk purchasing for communities. So most people don't know, but if you want to buy a municipal vehicle, a public safety vehicle, you can join the Plymouth County bid and get that vehicle at 15% off of what you could get anywhere else. And in fact, it was interesting because we compete with other levels of government as we put out our bid. And some of the police chiefs, and I commend them for doing this, went out to see how competitive we were. They actually thought of joining another bid, but realized they save $1,200 per vehicle more than any other bid by staying with our bid. So we have at least 350 different members that are part of that bid alone. We also do fuel oil, a whole host of other things. I could talk about this ad nauseum, as I'm sure you know.
It's a half-hour show. So
no, we don't have the time. But think about all those things, $2.73. What has been frustrating to us at the county level, however, has been that in addition to that direct taxation, we derive revenue from the Registry of Deeds. And historically, we've taken that revenue and been able to use it to provide services. However, the state has faced its own fiscal challenges, as you know, and the states needed to make decisions where they've reallocated some of that money and put it into the general fund. We think it's time now, as people are recognizing the value of regional services, to reallocate that back. And so we're working on a number of pieces of legislation.
That's one of the bills that we filed that's now being considered up at the State House.
That's right. As a result of that meeting, we were able to talk about the legislation. We have a number of co-sponsors. I want to get to the bill that you're co-sponsoring with Representative DiMacedo in a second, because that's going to be very helpful too. But let's just talk, if we could, about recording fees. So when you transact a property transaction here in Plymouth County, you go to the Registry of Deeds, there are fees associated with that. None of us like to pay fees. However, if you're purchasing something, it seems appropriate that there be a fee. The fees were relatively reasonable. However, you may recall that in 2003, Governor Romney, who was really anti-tax, recognized that there was a revenue problem, however. And what he did, unbeknownst to most people, was increase the fees. So he actually filed and supported legislation that increased the fees at the Registry of Deeds.
Oh, so Plymouth County saw a lot more of the revenue then, right?
No, and you know the answer, and I love the way you asked that question. They took all of the revenue that was generated from those increased fees, and we're talking significant increases. These were fees that hadn't been increased since the 80s. So they went in some instances from $10 to $70, $5 to $50. That entire increase went to the general fund of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So the frustration for us at the county level is these fees are being paid by the inhabitants of Plymouth County, and they're going into the general fund of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We feel that a percentage of that, and we're going to leave it to the wisdom of the legislature and the governor, but some percentage needs to come back and stay in Plymouth County, because if we can get $1 back, we can save $4 or $5 for our cities and towns. And I know you've been such a staunch advocate for Pembroke and for Hanson and Duxbury. You've already talked to me and said, okay, what can Plymouth County government do to help my communities as they're struggling? And if we can get some of these resources allocated back, I think we'll be able to help them more.
And just to be clear for folks, it's not a new fee. We're just talking about having more of the money stay here in Plymouth County of the existing fee.
100% correct. So. And that's the benefit of that legislation, because we realize people have challenges, and we're struggling every day to make ends meet. And so we don't want to do a new fee, but we just want to bring that money back, or some portion of that money back. We know the state needs money too, but bring some of it back here to Plymouth County.
So, assuming we're successful, and I'm optimistic, that extra money, how will it go to good use here at the county level?
Well, we get asked every day, and I get numerous phone calls about services we can provide. One thing we're looking at is the bulk purchasing of electricity. We know electrical costs are rising, and we feel if we could bring a number of communities together under our umbrella, under our auspices, that we'd be able to, and we know this because we've done the research, we'd be able to save them a significant amount of money. Our initial analysis suggests that for the city of Brockton, if we're able to bulk purchase under our control and under our operation, we would save the city of Brockton between $60,000 and $75,000 in year one. For a community, let's say, the size of Hanson, we believe that savings would be between $10,000 and $20,000 in year one. And that savings would just increase and continue on, because Hanson would then be buying with Pembroke or Halifax or some of the other surrounding communities. It does make sense, doesn't it? And people sometimes forget that when we work together in a bipartisan nature, we can accomplish some of these goals. Another challenge that our communities have is waste disposal. And a number of them are facing rising costs of waste disposal. And we've been asked to look at that and how we can facilitate that process. Many communities have contracts, so we might not be able to be of immediate help. But one of the things we're looking into is a regional transfer station, because whatever contract may be arranged by some of these individual communities, it's going to be harder to transport further. So if we have one central location where they can send their waste to, it'll actually reduce their hauling
intermediary
costs.
Between transportation and the incinerator?
Exactly. One central location. So we're looking at that. Another avenue we've been asked to explore is waste to energy. And so there's a real new technology that's out there that we're looking at, where we might be able to transfer some of this waste and turn it into energy. So we're looking at those types of technologies. Increasing our bulk purchase bid process. That takes a lot of resources, and we don't have a big staff at Plymouth County.
Yeah, maybe
we don't even have a big budget.
To divert for a second, could you just explain, what is the county government comprised of? How many commissioners are there, and what kind of staff do you have there?
Sure. And people think, big government.
Right.
Yeah, Plymouth County, it's big.
It must be huge.
Hundreds
of people, right?
Hundreds of people, you would think, right? So there are 3 commissioners. In the commissioner's office, there is the administrator, and then they have 3 people working for them. In my office, there's the treasurer. I actually have recently brought on board a deputy treasurer, which I have, and then I have 2 other people in my office. We have a parking department that has 2 people in it, and then the Registry of Deeds, and that's where most of our employees are.
So aside from the Registry of Deeds, you're talking about a dozen people?
Less than a dozen.
Less than a dozen people.
Yes. So it's not a big operation. However, if we're going to do more of these bids, we would probably need to bring somebody on. The other thing we've asked to consider has been hiring a grant writer for the regional communities. And if we hire one person, we could share that with Hanson, Duxbury, Pembroke, Kingston, Marshfield. So it's something that we're looking into. Again, if we don't have the revenue, though, or the resource to do that, and we may not be able to head in that direction, which is why we're looking at this legislation. The other piece that we brought to your folks' attention up on Beacon Hill when we were there last month was the question about the courthouse operations.
Yes.
And I wanted to talk about that because you've taken a leadership role.
Representative DiMacedo and I are jointly sponsoring that.
Yes, and you know how important it is, particularly for your constituents, to have these courthouses so that it's convenient for them. So unfortunately, the way it works is we're the owners of the courthouse, and the Commonwealth are our tenants. And so we expect them to be good tenants and to pay rent. However, the statute is somewhat obtusely construed, and it allows the Commonwealth to reimburse us less than 100%. So we're getting reimbursed about 82 cents for every dollar we spend. And we're not allowed to get any recovery for rent. I think we could, it wouldn't be as much of a problem for us. However, we know that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has to lease courthouse space from private landlords and pays triple net on those lease arrangements. And so it only seems fair to us that as landlords that we should get reimbursed at least dollar for dollar. If we spend $1 in the courthouse, we'd like to get $1 back. We might even like to be able to charge a small amount for square foot rent on that, but the legislation just simply allows us to begin to recoup dollar for dollar. That'll allow us to help repair the Wareham Courthouse, which needs a lot of work, the Hingham Courthouse, which needs a lot of work.
I was down in Wareham a number of years ago when I was on a jury. I haven't been down there since. That was probably 10 years ago. But from what I'm told, it's really, it's deteriorated, the conditions.
It has. And think about this. If you were in our shoes and owned the Wareham Court and spent $1 and got 80 cents back.
Right, there's no incentive to...
How many dollars would you spend before you said to yourself, oh my goodness, I can't? And unfortunately, it hurts the general operating side. So for every $1 we're spending on the courthouse, that means we can't do another bid. That means that we can't service the parking department. That means we have to lay somebody off in one of our other departments. So at some point, it just becomes very financially difficult for us to continue to support.
And it's not just an inconvenience. There's an economic price when you have fewer courthouses. Your Duxbury police officers, if they have to go to Brockton instead of Plymouth, it costs extra money and it comes back to the taxpayers, right?
Absolutely correct. And that's why whenever there's a discussion about what courthouses might be closed around the Commonwealth, you find certainly in this region a strong advocacy to keep our courthouses because Plymouth County is so big. So imagine...
You've driven from Hull to Wareham? How long does that take?
As a matter of fact, I have.
How long does that take?
It takes an hour and 10 minutes.
Is that the furthest depart?
Hull to Wareham. I actually think Hull to Mattapoisett.
Hull to Mattapoisett.
Would probably be a longer trip.
The tip of Hull, like Pemberton Pier and Hull to Mattapoisett.
South Mattapoisett, yes.
Okay,
that would take probably an hour and a half, I would say, yeah.
I had thought that correct me if I'm wrong, that the old county lines were drawn in such a way so that they would always be a day's horse ride from the center.
They must have had some fast horses back then. I don't know if that's true.
Old wives' tale? Or
it might be. But the center of Plymouth County, for those that are curious, is right in the town of Halifax. Right actually by the Halifax Country Club. There is a...
right near my town of Hanson.
You're right near your town, very close to the center. That we'll have to have county meetings in Hanson.
Yes.
But there is, in fact, a stone right near, I think, the 9th hole, but I'm not 100% certain of that, out in the woods that designates the exact center of Plymouth County. But you're 100% correct. Imagine in Duxbury if those police officers now couldn't drive to Hingham, which is probably the closest, or couldn't drive to Plymouth or Wareham and had to go to Brockton. That's not terribly convenient. And so we're not even thinking, let alone their time, but gas, miles on the vehicles. Sure. So we really appreciate you recognizing we need to do this. We need to correct this right away. Representative DiMacedo as well.
That's another example of bipartisanship, too.
It's a perfect example, yes. And as you know, Vinny and I served together for 8 years and developed a very fast friendship. And
I can tell you, he and the rest of the delegation has been very welcoming to me as a new freshman, showing me the ropes, and hasn't been any hazing yet. So
no, you should be okay. Well, I think they recognize, Josh, your commitment certainly to doing the job, your commitment to the district. You bring a real breath of fresh air. You have a joie de vivre about you, and you really are anxious to get going. And that's what people look for. So as I talk to members of the delegation, because I still get the chance to do that on a regular basis, they're excited that you're part of the team. And it's important for people to know they have a team up there advocating for them.
I agree.
And the county needs to be a part of that. You know, we need to be available to talk to you folks and to say, you know, here's what we're doing, but how can we help? So it's a two-pronged approach that we're looking to do and to undertake. So I was going to talk about another piece of legislation that we had up there as well. And it was really to correct the problem that we have with the retirees of the Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, maybe you could just explain for viewers that the Sheriff's Department is no longer part of county government, even though it seems like it would be.
Well, and even though it's called the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department. So back in 2010, the legislature had been looking at how to make the operations of the correction facilities run better. And most of the correctional facilities were under the auspices of the Department of Corrections. So they looked at consolidating the remaining county sheriffs under that particular control. While that was happening, those of us at the county level were approached and we said, you know, if you feel that's a good way to do it, we don't oppose that. However, as you're taking over those assets, we're asking that you also take the liabilities. So it's like taking over a house and taking the mortgage too. You can't just take the house and leave behind the mortgage. And unfortunately, that's what's happened a little bit here. So they took the operations and they took the active employees. However, the retired employees remained in the Plymouth County retirement system. And those employees are getting a check every month, as they should. They worked very hard for that. But we were covering the cost of their retirement with the contributions of the active employees. So when you took the active employees out of our system, we had no way to cover that liability. And that liability total is about $32 million. So unfortunately, what the state did was leave that $32 million liability with the Plymouth County Retirement Board, and that, therefore, is the responsibility of the members of the Plymouth County Retirement Board. So all of those member units now share some of that liability. We don't think that's fair. We think that needs to be corrected. The state has created a mechanism to use some portion of their deeds excise to cover that. But we've got to make sure that it covers it 100%. So that legislation has been filed by Representative Bradley. I know many members of the delegation are co-sponsoring that as well. Because it really isn't fair to the inhabitants of Plymouth County, to your constituents, to have to pick up that liability. It needs to be paid for by the Commonwealth. One of the suggestions I have, which I'd still love the state to consider, is put these retirees in the state retirement system. That would be an easy solution as well. So we'll see what happens. I know you folks are going to work diligently on this piece of legislation and see what we can do. Do I have time to even talk about one more?
Go for it.
I imagine that we're running out of time, but another piece that we had talked about was, and I find this fascinating, creating a stabilization fund for county government. So people are familiar with that.
We have a stabilization fund at the state level. It's
the
highest in the nation, actually.
And it is, and really sometimes the legislature doesn't get credit. I know that when I was up there, there was a big battle to build that stabilization fund up to $2.2 billion. And that was hard to do. Thank goodness that was done during the difficult times of 2008, 2009.
Lately.
And it had to. There was no choice. So some good decisions made back then, and I know you folks are heading into a time when you can continue to make those good decisions, set some money aside for a rainy day. The towns do that as well. They all have a stabilization fund. Anybody's been to town meeting, they know the conversations about, do we put money into stabilization fund? Are we going to spend money out of stabilization fund? But at the county government level, we don't have the ability to set money aside for a rainy day. It doesn't make sense. So if we have a year where we're taking in maybe a little more than what was budgeted, and that hasn't happened since 2005, but we're hoping it might happen on the horizon, we can't put money aside for down the road, and so we have to spend all of that money sooner than we would want. So we filed that legislation and are looking forward to that moving through the process as well.
Very good. Well, we have a couple more minutes. There's a lot of legislation going on. Anything else in terms of Plymouth County that you want to share with our viewers that are on the horizon, perhaps, or ideas that you're considering that might be of interest to them?
Well, what we want to do is certainly encourage people to call. and let us know if
Yeah,
they
now how
have...
do the folks even reach their county government?
See, another good question, and that's why we need to come on the Cutler Corner and other shows as much as we can. The easiest thing to do is just to call into the office, 508-830-9100, fairly easy to remember. They can leave a message or a call. And
where are you actually located physically?
Physically located in the Shire Town, right here in Plymouth. And by the way, Plymouth County government has been around since June 2nd, 1685.
Are we the oldest county?
We are not the oldest county, but we're the most historic county.
Who's the oldest county?
There is a county in Virginia, James City County, which was formulated before we were.
Roanoke settlement?
It's down by James City. So our challenge was that we were a colony. We were the Plymouth Colony, and we stayed a colony a lot longer than some other parts of the country did before they broke up into counties. So it's the fact that our colony lasted longer that puts us at a disadvantage.
But how many counties are left in Massachusetts?
There are 7 left.
Okay.
So there were 7 back in the late 1990s that the state saw fit to bring back into the umbrella of the Commonwealth. What's interesting about that is, of those 7, 3 are trying to reformulate themselves as county government because they're seeing the benefits of regional services. Particularly out west, we were surprised back in the late 1990s that they got rid of some of the counties out there. And so Franklin County is trying to recreate itself. They now have a council of governments. They're looking at that. Hampshire County. So some of the counties...
You have towns out there in Western Mass with 100 people in it.
Right.
I can't imagine not having regional government there, right?
Right. And it's been a problem. So they're looking to recreate. We have the advantage here in southeastern Massachusetts of having county government strong and getting a little bit more vibrant. So the counties that remain are Dukes, Nantucket, Bristol, Barnstable, Plymouth, Norfolk, and Suffolk.
Well, we don't have time to talk about it tonight, but I want to put a tease on for our next show.
Oh, I like that.
About the Plymouth County Charter. And that's another thing that's going to be coming up that might be something we discuss and have you back. Maybe have some of our county commissioners on the show. But we do have to wrap things up. I want to thank viewers for tuning in. I want to especially thank our guest representative, Plymouth County Treasurer Tom O'Brien.
That's okay, I get that all the time.
Former state representative, and we're very honored and pleased to have you here. And again, I want to thank the viewers for tuning in to the Cutler Corner. It's my honor to serve as your state representative. And again, if you need to reach out to me, I encourage you to visit my website at www.joshcutler.com. Has my State House contact information, cell phone number, office hours, all that good stuff. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And thanks again for tuning in, and have a great day.